I still have my Christmas tree up. It doesn't really.
So do we, but it's now a Mardi Gras tree.
Exactly.
If you want to,
Just throw some hearts on it and call it a Valentine's tree. It's fine.
Just
That's the real reason all of these trees started.
Oh, really?
Too much. Yeah.
I gotta get rid of all the
First you have a Mardi Gras tree, then or Valentine's, depends on you, right? And then have a St. Patty's tree, then have an Easter tree, and then have a Memorial Day tree, then a 4th of July tree. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, after that is August. Back to school tree.
Yeah, sure. And then Halloween tree.
Yeah.
And then a harvest tree.
That's true. That sucker could stay up year round.
Girl.
Danny, our tree's staying up year round.
This is a new business. ChangeYourTree.com. And we just go in and we switch people's trees with new ornaments.
Oh, you sell the kits.
I almost was there selling
the
kits. Have you seen the pop-up tree?
No.
I'm this close to getting the pop-up tree. Remember, Danny? It literally is
everything's on it?
Yes. It's a circle.
Okay.
And it collapses.
Okay.
You put it away like in a
with the ornaments on it?
Yeah, with the ornaments on it. Then you take it out and you lift it up and you have a stick, like a telescopic stick.
Brilliant.
I'm on it.
Okay. I don't know. I think ChangeYourTree.com. I'm ready for it. Buy the kits. All right. Ready?
Don't
put that on the podcast because we don't want somebody stealing our great idea.
True.
Hi guys, welcome back. Cheers.
We're back.
Cheers.
We got refills.
And changed it up. We decided on a Manhattan.
And man, she said I can have one.
Yeah. Well, and since this is part 2 of our finale, right? We decided last week we covered some great content, or last episode covered some great content. We were going to pour the rest of this meaty, amazing stuff for them to watch the following week.
Yeah, because if we would have put it into 2 episodes, it would have been a really long one, and we didn't want to rush through this next part, which is really meaty. So we said, hey, we're going to break this up, and I got myself a refill, and now here we go. So remember, we've been drinking Oregon Spirit. Wow. Now, we've done this drink, this particular Bottle and Bond, which is 100 proof.
Yes.
We've done this. Now, we did it in actual cocktails. I think we did a Sazerac and a Vauquerie, right? To celebrate Mardi Gras season.
Yes.
So it made a lovely cocktail, but honestly, it is so complex and delicious and special that the last episode, honestly, just drinking it on ice.
It was great.
Was delicious. And then I think you're right. Just that little nod of, what is it? Vermouth, right? And then the 2 cherries. We did 2 cherries because
I love cherries.
Why not? Because why not? So what does this make it? An upper Manhattan, maybe?
Upper class Manhattan.
Oh my gosh, I love it. But really loving this from Oregon Spirit. And you even talked about having tried other stuff. And what I also like is they really try to source local, and just really get quality things locally in Oregon and hold on to that, the art and the craft of.
And I've tried bourbons. My husband and I are big bourbon drinkers. My husband especially, he's got a huge collection. And we've tried really expensive bourbons. And this bottle is up there. In not in price either, but in quality. In taste, it's really up there. And I said, I was, in the very first sip of this 2 episodes ago, I said, you know what, I'm not going to name any certain bottles out there that have a little horse on the top, a little round ball. But it is really good.
It's really good.
And really comparable to some of those higher price bottles. So I definitely recommend this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought it was a reasonable price.
Yeah.
Right. It's I think I ended up grabbing it within the $60 to $70 range.
Yeah, which
really, for bourbon.
Yeah. Especially with the bourbon
100 proof.
Yeah.
Right. Bottle and bond. Like that's really phenomenal.
It's a really good price.
And then when you taste it, and it sits on shelves next to some of these other long-standing families of bourbons and whiskeys, then it really holds its own. It's delicious. Well really done, does. Oregon Spirit.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. This has been delightful.
Delightful.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. And I would love to, so I know I've had this one, and then I said I've had their blue bottle. I'd love to see if we can maybe bring on some other ones. I have to research a little bit more of what they make, but I'm pretty sure they have.
I think we should just go to Oregon. Like the pictures that I've seen.
I've never been to Oregon. It looks beautiful.
Looks so pretty, right?
Yeah, we're in Florida, so we got to fly to the other.
Cross country, right?
Well, here we go again. Sorry.
Well, all right. So, loving this spirit. So, books and booze. We got our booze. Our book we have been reading, and this is the final wrap. For our listeners, this will wrap up February for them.
Yeah.
Yep. It is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Yes. Yeah. E-Myth. Okay. So we said we were leaving out the last episode, we kind of left off. They talked about the technician. Mm-hmm. He dove into
the three kind of key areas: either innovation.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're right.
Innovation, quantification,
and then orchestration. Yeah, making the symphony for your business.
Absolutely. Yes. And what I like is, as Michael's talking to Sarah in this journey, who happens to already have an existing business that is really struggling. Like she is just burned out. She's right now a one-man band. She's lost 2 key players in her journey. Her concern with creating a turnkey or franchisable concept in her business was that it would all of a sudden feel very cold.
Yep.
Right? She didn't want where basically it's a whole bunch of robots doing something. And Michael really challenged her and is like, well, that's where your thumbprint as a leader comes in. But also, don't you think I really think it was the grandmother. We keep messing up whoever it was that made pies with her, but I think it was her grandmother. Okay. That there was a method and a reason for everything, right? That she was taught to roll the dough a certain way. She was taught to lay the fruits in a certain way. She was taught to press, the dough down. But what else? I don't make pies. So I'm not sure, but there was a method, and Sarah in the book understands, and then kind of the light goes off that if she were to create systems that she could teach to somebody else, she could pass on the art of something she has fallen in love with. Right. And get somebody else to do it just as well for the same reasons.
Yeah. And then that's the tone.
Yes. The tone. Exactly. So what I really love is how he wraps up this book. Like this was such a powerful section. And he questions us as readers and says, how do you think and run your business if it were a prototype? So, okay. All right. If my business is a prototype and 3 other stores are about to open, is what I'm doing successful, right? Yeah. And if not, we need to get innovative. And once we try something new, we need to quantify the data. And if it works, we orchestrate it. Right. So then he really digs into 7 steps really to have a business ready as a prototype.
Okay.
And that's why I thought, you and I agreed we should kind of save this as its own episode. Yeah. Initially we kind of grouped them all together, but this deserves a little time because it's so true. So I'm going to quickly list the 7 steps and then we'll kind of dig into them. So if you remember, the first one is your primary aim.
Yes.
The second is your strategic objective.
Yeah.
The third is your organizational strategy, and then your management strategy, your people strategy, your marketing strategy, and your systems strategy.
Yeah.
So, and that is so true. Every business needs all of those components in place. And this is one of those times where I said, it felt really good as we were building kind of what we take, our individuals wanting to launch their own business, and we want to really set them up for success. And the modules that we take them through really dig into a lot of these concepts, because if you don't have a lot of these things in place, those are loopholes and the failure points that everything really can unravel.
They really are. I like how you when you mentioned like the aim, it just makes me think of Simon Sinek's. The golden circle, where he, your why is what you're aiming for, and
that's exactly what he calls it. He says your aim is your goals, your why.
Yeah.
So we talk about this a lot, but really, why is it that somebody who's wanting to start their own business, why is their why such an important thing to be the first thing to articulate before they do anything else in their business, in your opinion? Because you have done it and launched and grown a successful business now.
So for me, I think when you know your why, I think I might have articulated this in the past, but when you know your why, it clears the clutter. And the clutter being the obstacles that get in your way, challenges that you come against, different personality of various team members, or even a spat here or there with your spouse on how things should be carried through. Your why is centered, and so it gives you clarity on how to actually tackle that objection, that challenge, that obstacle, and so with clarity, decisions become easier, and down to how the clarity as into how to orchestrate your time, because that's another thing as being a business owner. Your time becomes, time is precious to begin with.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when you're a business
owner is even
wearing 5 hats,
it becomes, you have to be very intentional. And that actually goes into the intentionality of your life, make things happen for you and not to you. And so when you have your why, you're very intentional about how you will use your time creatively, quantifiably, right? And to orchestrate the life you always want to have.
Absolutely. Which leads right into then what he calls his strategic objective, right? Because that is basically a clear statement of what your business ultimately has to do so that you can reach your aim.
Yeah.
So if your ultimate goal, you wanted to start your own business because you want to provide more for your family and have more time with your family, right? A lot of people we talk to, that when you really boil it down, they want to make a certain amount a year so that they have financial freedom and can spend more time traveling, seeing family who lives maybe across the country or the world, right?
Gain more time to pick up various hobbies that they might have dropped off. Or
attend things at the schools for the kids.
Yeah, attend things for the schools, or even they just want to try a new sport, go on new adventures. They have the growth mindset that they want to just try new things, experience new things.
Right. So what does your business need to ultimately do so that you can get the paycheck you need for your family? Yeah. Need and want, right? Yeah. Sometimes they're meshed, and sometimes people have a need line and then a hope line. Yeah. So do what your business,
it is true.
So what does your business ultimately need to do? That doesn't mean your first, year to 5 years that's going to happen, right? You might be a one-man show for a while, but if you build your business from the beginning to be replicable, then the minute things start to pick up, you are ready to teach what your standard is, that orchestration piece. You're ready to teach that to somebody else that you hire in, because your business is making enough money for you to pay someone to manage your business so that you can take every weekend off, take a few vacations a year. Yeah. It's doable. You just have to prepare your business to generate that much money.
Yeah. And I think sometimes one of the obstacles that I think a lot of business owners come across is that they understand the need of having standard operating procedures. They understand the need of having really good training or training someone to do a specific job. But the first objection and the first challenge they come across is, I don't have time to train them, because the moments I spend training them or writing this SOP or doing it this way, is taking time away from me from effectively doing my job. And so it becomes a paradox because they're sitting there thinking like, I don't have time to train them, but at the same time, not having time to train them is going to cost you what your end goal, your why.
How many people have we started with who, are either like, I know I'm going to have to put in like 16, 7-hour workdays, 17-hour workdays. Even Sarah in this book was pulling like 17-hour workdays. So like, okay, you've done it before. So if you're already putting that time in, what about putting another hour in to standardize something? Yeah. Put it in writing so it's replicable.
Huge. I think one of the breakthroughs that my husband and I went through in our business, we had to really go into getting into the mindset of training was really just setting out. I remember specifically one day I got tired. I was like, man, I'm so fed up. I'm done doing this repetitive task that, it felt like a data entry position that I was like, no,
you need to be doing other things for your business.
My brain power,
You needed time to be the entrepreneur versus the technician.
And I said, you know what? No, I just got fed up and I just finally, I think I stayed late one night and just sat down and wrote down step by step everything that I was doing for this particular task. And I wrote it down step by step. And then I went and I gave it to someone to do. And now I had to sit with them and step by step tell them, but it was like revolutionary because that person went and got their cell phone and started recording me doing it. And I'm like, I could have done this so long ago.
We talked about that, right? Yeah, so that's why like just record a little something.
Yeah, just record it. And then at the end, so it did take me an hour. It did take effort finding that person to do this step.
So 1 hour, 1 week.
1 hour, 1 week.
Maybe another hour, another week. Yeah. Training. Yeah. Another half hour, maybe the following week follow up.
So 2.5 hours, but that person saved me maybe 2.5 years of my life. So yes.
Have another.
I can have 2.5 years of another.
So, I mean, it's just huge. And a lot of people are like, well, it's just me and my husband, or it's just me and my sister, right? In a business. But this is where, so we move from, strategic objective, and that flows really perfectly into operational strategy. Yeah. Because that's really where you decide who does what. And he gives a really great example of two brothers who were in business together making something. And at first, when the business first opened, they both basically picked up each other's, right? One would get in earlier, clean the shop, and then get to work on whatever it is they offered. The other would come in. The one might say, I'm going to go grab something to eat. He would see where his brother left off, continued with it. Yeah. Yeah. And they basically just did all things whenever it was needed. And the first few months, it was perfectly fine. Yeah. But all of a sudden, between their personalities, the product they offered, business grew. And they were kind of, then they didn't have an organizational chart of who was responsible for
Their roles weren't defined.
Their roles weren't. So what happened was the shop didn't get cleaned. Orders were left unfilled. Bills were left unpaid. Yeah. And then, so all of a sudden, things weren't getting fulfilled correctly. Customers, and then they were both stressed. Where if they had just taken a moment to say, okay, person one, I am better at this. Person two is better at this. So in the end, what you are responsible every day, every week are these, and maybe it's 6 different roles, right? Because you think about an organization. You think about these franchises, and you usually have the GM, and then you have maybe a operations manager and a selling manager. And within that, you have somebody who handles marketing, somebody who handles the customer experience, somebody who handles bookkeeping, somebody who handles inventory control, right? So who does what within that organization so that when it really boils down, and they need to be possessive of their time to get that done.
And I think it really helps with accountability too, because once you've structured out like who's your chief in sales and marketing, right? Mm-hmm. So if something happens in marketing, you're not going to go to the CFO for it. Right. No. You're not going to go to the operations manager with it. You're going to go to the guy who's in charge of sales and marketing. So the organizational chart is really needed just because it helps with knowing when a problem does arise, who do you go to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then he talks about organizational strategy, and then he gets into management strategy. And I loved this part of the book because he talked about his drive, and he needed to stop at a hotel, to rest on his trek. And he stops at a hotel, and he had just the most amazing experience check-in. He didn't have a reservation, but it's okay. They took his name. They got him into a room.
Yeah.
And then while she was checking him in, are you going to be hungry? Would you dine with us? And then while he went to dinner, the waiter asked a certain amount of questions that didn't even register to him. But what ended up happening is he had a note on his pillow at night with some chocolates. Certain hotels do that. And then the next morning, the coffee brand that he most preferred was ready in his room for him.
That is some bougie stuff too. Let me tell
you. So he digs deeper. He was like, who is running this? They must be amazing. And this is what we get a lot of entrepreneurs who seem to think, I cannot afford the right person to manage my business.
Yeah.
You don't need someone with 15, 20 years experience. You don't need to go recruit somebody from the highest end, whatever it is that you do, corporate run, right? What you need is a management system that is replicable. So he finds the manager the next morning, and it's not some experienced person, right? Okay. It's this kid basically who hasn't had experience running a hotel, but he shares with him what it is that they do. And he has this binder of checklists.
Okay.
And every morning, everybody in the hotel gets a checklist of everything they're supposed to do. So if you are, taking care of the hotel rooms, like the guest rooms, you have a checklist. And it includes making sure that certain level of standard for cleaning and things like that. But then it's the chocolates on the pillows. It's making sure you connect with the restaurant or front desk to find out what coffee they like, right? And so it was things that people can just follow. And that's one of the things when Michael talks about, a prototype that's replicable, he says what needs to be done should be able to be taught to I think he said something like the lowest level individual, but somebody without experience, training, right, and things like that is what he meant.
The newbie.
The newbie,
you're
exactly.
You're looking for the inexperience. You're looking for the entry level position.
Yeah.
Someone who's coming in. And I think about this even too in our businesses. Like, I wanted that even your grandma can do it. Someone who has no experience in any of the software, any of the technology, but if you train them step by step, it's easy user interface, or something easily taught. And that checklist, and that way, for me, I actually like hiring the inexperienced
they're not full of a whole bunch of preset. Yeah. Oh, this is how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Right. But he said something really critical in this part. So he was talking about the manager was showing him this binder, the checklists that are given each day. And he says that not doing the checklist completely is grounds for termination.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of management systems fall apart, right? We often either condone less than what somebody can perform to. Yeah. And the first time we let it slide, we basically give them permission. First time, shame on me. Second time, shame on you.
I don't know if I get it.
Right. So it doesn't need to be termination the first time, but it needs to be...
There has to be some sort of repercussion.
Sure.
Yes.
And I think the bigger picture is also the standard is set from when you are hired in.
Yes.
Right? So if you're hired in, you're my new associate, and I'm like, okay, welcome. I'm so glad to have you. How my guest feels is the most important thing to me. And that is what keeps them coming back. You are now part of something that is amazing here. I'm so excited to have you. I am going to teach you what I want from you to deliver every time to my customer. I'm going to teach you this. I'm going to make sure you understand it. And if you don't feel you can deliver that, then I need to know, because then you're not the right person for this role.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
Right? So then they mean business. I need to figure this out, or I need to be honest with them that that's just not in anything I want to do, or maybe am capable of doing. Right? But it's usually a want to do. Let's be honest. So And I think it's that standard that is really important. And then we talked about mindset and how often, when we read the book, it's very easy to try to coddle people. Oh, I know you're trying really hard. It's okay. No. You know what? Okay. You're better than this.
Yeah.
This can be done. How are you going to make this happen? And that message can be delivered with love. I talked about my good friend Charlene, and her daughter wanted to make cookies, and the grandparents were like, these cookies that you didn't follow the ingredients for are amazing. Right? And Charlene's like, these are not great. What would you do different?
Yeah.
Right? Mistakes are okay, I think is what you're getting at. Yeah. People are going to make mistakes. There's a learning curve in the training period.
That's where I go about the human side
of course. But humans are also capable of amazing things. Look at the great civilizations that have been built, right? Look at what doctors have accomplished in healing us and figuring out obstacles medically and things like that. We humans are amazing. Every single human's amazing.
And I think where I go with the human is, I understand mistakes can be made, but I just say, when a mistake is made, how can we learn?
Of course.
And then reinforce the behavior that we want.
Absolutely.
So it's not going to be termination, but there are repercussions that can happen that will reinforce, the behavior that we did ultimately want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and there are industries where termination, right? So you get somebody who's in a food and beverage, and certain health procedures have to be followed.
Yeah.
If somebody is negligent
it's a liability at that point. Yeah.
Well, and it's people's lives. Yeah. Screw the legal system, like people's health and wellness in this. So it's okay to have a standard, and that standard, just because it's somebody's life or death, we humans can deliver high standards on this. And that's where he then gets into the people strategy. So we just wrapped up the management system. Then he talks about, or the management strategy, then it's the people strategy. And this is the environment you create, how you perform the work, and the expectations you set up from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think if you take off that business owner hat and put on a leader hat, and we talk about this in our modules, it's how you deal with your team and how you inspire them to the standards that you set versus fear-mongering and things like that.
Yeah.
But to back yourself up, if you let them know this is the standard, if you don't deliver it, then we need to have a conversation.
But I also think is lead by example. That's a part of being a leader, right?
Absolutely.
So
not do as I say.
Do as I say, but not as I do. And I think there we go.
There we go. Puppies on parade. Tick, 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 tick.
As long as we're reinforcing what we would actively do ourselves as a leader, I think that's the stance that we can take.
Absolutely.
I'm doing it. That's why I expect you
to do it as well. Right. Absolutely. And then he digs into the marketing strategy, and he talks about how that should revolve completely around your customer.
Yeah.
He says you need to kind of throw out what your preferences are and what your ideals are, and you need to collect data, quantifiable data from your customers. He's like, have them do a survey. Ask them questions as they shop. Get to know them. Who are they?
Follow up with them after the purchase. Yeah.
Honestly, in this day and age, depending on who's following you on social media, you can get a lot of that information, depending on the type of systems you've, invested in. Comments. There's that too, right? Right. And then he wraps it up with the system strategy, which ties really back to the management one too, where there's a standard operating procedure, right? Yeah. Everything needs to be replicable, from what does opening your brick and mortar on a daily basis look like to closing it down? Yeah. What does the ordering system look like? What does the cleaning the bathroom schedule? This is huge. So many people forget that.
Yeah, like restocking the break
toilet paper in the break room.
Yeah, making sure all the waste bins are emptied out. Who's vacuuming the floors? Who's restocking the materials that are normal? You have prep and all of that, but down to the nitty gritty, as into who is making sure that
X, Y, and Z is done.
Yeah.
And done to your standard.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And this applies even, so maybe we don't have people that have a brick and mortar. We have people who have their own salons. Yeah. We have people who have construction and home, things. So all of this applies, especially the systems piece, because when you don't have a brick and mortar, sometimes it's harder to remember. Check your emails daily, check your voicemails daily, respond to these people, right? Post on social media. When you walk into a brick and mortar, there's an essence of clocking in a way. Yeah. But when you work from home, sometimes that can get muddled when you're making a peanut butter jelly sandwich, getting the kids to school, coming home and making some of the jewelry that you're going to sell, and then go to the kids' soccer game, and then and then, right? So when you have a system in place, I need to do this first, this next, this next, this next.
And I think you can apply it to your life. I kind of do. Oh, I have time blocking all over my calendar. It's like an SOP of my life right now. Some people might say it's boring, but for me, it keeps me on track.
Absolutely.
It makes me 5 a.m. club. What is it? Own your morning, elevate your life. It's just a system.
Oh, I love that.
It's a systematic approach to how you want to live your life.
Well, they say most successful people wake up early.
I'm not part of the 5 a.m. club, but I do take the 20-20-20 part in my morning routine. I just haven't implemented the 5 a.m. part.
I have to dig more into that. Love that. So overall, such an amazing book. Right?
Yes.
Wasn't this incredible? You've read it, 4 or 5 times?
Yeah. Yes. I love it.
I'm on my 3rd time through it just as we go through this podcast, but
it's a great, it's a great, yeah.
It's a great.
It's a great.
Y'all, thank you so much for joining us for another episode, right?
Yes. I love this book. I love you. I love this book. As you can tell. I'm so glad we're wrapping this up because I don't know if I can take another one.
Oh my gosh. All right, friends. Grab a good book.
Get some great booze.
And grab a good buddy to share it with. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Bye.
Bye.